something in their wardrobe that looks like this. Who has a Pharisee outfit on hand at all times? Thanks, Dad. I wish I was joking, but he helps out at the Hopewell skit, and he is a religious leader. And this morning, is this working at all? Okay. This morning I was thinking, or last night, I was real excited about this sermon, because really, it's not that hard for me to put on the old Pharisee outfit and do a little bit of judgment. So I was thinking about what a Pharisee would do, what they were good at. And a Pharisee was a very good religious leader. He was probably someone who was paid pretty handsomely because they took advantage of other people inside the temple and they sold things. And then they kind of worked under the government as far as the Roman government, and then there was like religious leaders. Then the Pharisees were right under them to kind of control things. So imagine that at times the Pharisees would get a little bit disturbed when Jesus would call them out. And Jesus called them out pretty hard. And I look at what Jesus would do today, and he'd probably call me out. And call me out hard sometimes, because it didn't take long for me to think about how far back I had to go since I judged somebody in a worship service. It was last night. So last night, no kidding, the pastor was even talking on this subject. And we had no clue I was going to speak about. Well, I knew I had my sermon ready. I was going to speak about it today, but in worship service, I didn't even make it to the time of the sermon before I was judging someone around me, because they were different than me. And I even asked Caitlin later, did it bother her? Did she judge this person because they looked different or because they were different? And she said, yeah, for sure. Not to mention that I'm a pastor, not to mention that it was a worship service, but we were already thrown off, both of us, and we were already judging before the service even started. And it's like, do we do that in church today? Good chance. Good chance you've already looked at someone this morning and you're like, some thoughts came to your head and you were frustrated. I got some news for us all. We're good Pharisees when we do that. When we judge others, when we go ahead and presume things, when because they're different or we don't really like them because of something they said, we're very good at judging. And today is going to be all about the view on the Pharisee and then the view of what a Christian should look like. So I'm going to pray and we're going to get going. God, I thank you that your word is very straightforward. It's very true, and that I thank you that even though we're all a mess and that we struggle with things, we judge, we talk, we do all these things, God, that you're graceful enough not to just strike us down, and you give us a chance. Today I pray that you open our hearts and minds, and you do things in us that we can never expect on our own. We need a heart change, and we need something pretty drastic, and we need your help. So in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I was thinking about the new church building idea, new things, and I'm like, well, how do we grow the church? Well, we grow the church by inviting those other people in. This is pretty common sense. We invite them, and they come, and there's more people in the audience. We can do that. I could push next week, let's get 300 here. And to be honest with you, we would probably be able to get in the high 200s. Or we invite people normally. And this week, I'll be honest with you, I was convicted to the point that I stepped on my own toes so many times, or God stepped on my toes. I was like, I need to go see a foot doctor. Like, we were having some problems. We don't invite people because we think that they don't want to come. We invite people because they think that they're too good, they already got it figured out, and we don't look at their soul, we look at who we think they are. And we're so quick to be the judge that literally they may be below us, they may be above us, or we just don't really like them anyways, so we don't invite them to church, or we don't invite them to experience the love that God has for us. Here's the reason why. We want them to change before they come to us. Before changing, God says, let them come to you before they change. And this is pretty hard for me because I'm like, all right, you're telling me the person who dresses very different, the person who struggles with the homosexual lifestyle, the person who is a gossiper, the person who's a liar, the person who's a thief, the drug addict, you name it. You want me to invite them to church and then have them come as they are and welcome them. Welcome to church 2019. That's what we're supposed to do. We get them to come, we invite them, we welcome them as they are, a complete mess, and I don't care what sin you want to name, you name it, and if this isn't good for your ears and you don't like this, we probably should have a talk. Yeah, with this Pharisee outfit, we need to get something for one of these things. But I look at it, and we invite them in as they are, just as I had to struggle with this person last night, and realize that God can change them, just like they changed me. But if we never invite them and welcome them as they are, or come as you are, right? If we never do that, then how do we expect them to just automatically change and then all of a sudden want to start coming to Zenas? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's our mindset. Man, if they would just change this, if they wouldn't do this, but shouldn't we invite people that are absolute mess in our community? And matter of fact, when they come and they're going to mess up, just like we do, are we going to have grace to invite them back, right? And forgive them and say, man, I can't change you just like I couldn't change myself, but God can. I know the person who can. I'm excited to invite you to Zenas today because we're a complete mess and you're a mess. Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. But know that we're not perfect and that we come hoping God will change us. Not that the sermon will change you or anything, but that God himself and the presence here will change us. So when we invite others, know that they are going to be bringing in a mess. We deal with this often. You deal with people in life. You know that they come with some nice baggage, and you know what it is. And you're like, well, I don't really know if that's good for our church right now. It's good, because if they don't come, I'm not saying God can't change them out in the community, but don't we believe that God is the one who changes people, and that we want to invite them here so that they can be changed? So God can do the work, not that we judge them ahead of time. And this week, there's somebody very high up in the community that I would not have invited to church, just to be real. They seem too busy, they have too much on their plate. And I have a friend who owns a business, and he invited them every time he sees everybody. He invites them to the church service. Everybody. I'm talking the poor, the lowly, the atheists, the Muslims, the churchgoers. He invites them to a church service, right? Everybody. Nobody's exempt. Not even me. And I thought he was crazy until this week. We pull into this business, and the guy that I would have never invited because he was too high up, sometimes we even judge the wrong way, the people that are too successful. He's the one that was serving, and that was that Bible study. And he was being discipled, and he's at every service, and he is extremely excited now because someone else would invite him. And I wouldn't have. I had my chance for years, I never did, because I'm like, well, these people are too busy. They have a spot in the community where if people knew they were Christians, they would pay for it. And their job would be on the line. But this guy doesn't care. And not only that, he's like, well, how can I take my organization, which deals with a lot of kids, and how can we work together in this ministry? That's the conviction I needed to say, am I even inviting people to church? To be honest with you, to have a different building that seats more people doesn't do any good if we don't really want any more people. If we don't want people from the higher up in our community, the successful business people, or if we don't want people from the caverns, or if we don't want these people, then we don't need to be building a bigger church. We need to be sitting exactly where we are, and really we need to weed a few of us out, probably starting with your pastor. Where are we at in welcoming, right? So I'm often not far from the Pharisees, because what happened was they seen Jesus doing amazing things, right? And they would look and they would be like, oh, they couldn't wait till Jesus did something that was against their made-up laws. Like healing on the Sabbath. How dare you, Jesus, for healing somebody on the Sabbath day? I don't care about the healing, I don't care about that person, but you broke one of our laws. And that's how we are. How dare you do this? But really God's saying, man, I know they're going to do that. How do you expect a non-Christian to act? Exactly like that, exactly like you did. Maybe you still are. That's how they're going to act. Are we going to invite them in? Are we going to say, come as you are? Right? And I was thinking about that a lot this week, and I was like, you know what, I'll just put on the old Pharisee costume, because today we may look different, we don't wear something as silly as this, right? But we still value people the same way, right? Do we value others with ridiculous love? Do we go to them because God loved us? Or do we go to them because we have to, or maybe that's what we should do, or maybe we just avoid them? But we're not just tolerating people inside of here. We need to be going outside the walls and actually loving the people out there. We try to be God, and we judge other sins. No doubt about it. We all do it. But when we step back and see, as Keith put it, kidnapped royalty in other people, we start changing our perspective. Why in the world would we expect others to act like us? And when they don't act like us, we're pretty disgusted. And we're even a mess ourselves, so I'm not sure why we want them to act like us. A quote that's been going around this week is, we judge others by their actions, but yet we judge our own intentions. That doesn't seem too fair. But how often do we expect the unexpected to happen? This friend who invited this high person in society to his church services, I never expected that to happen. And I guarantee there's people in your life where you would never expect them to come to church. Never expect them to follow God. But when they see a love that's real and you keep inviting, you keep showing them the love, things change in amazing ways. I think I can take this stuff off now. But I look at the way we look at people, and it changes so much. I was listening to the song Forgiveness by Matthew West. Let me give you a couple of verse here. Show me how to love the unlovable. Show me how to reach the unreachable. Help me now to do the impossible. Forgiveness. I want, finally, to set it free. Show me how to see what your mercy sees. Help me now to give what you gave to me. Forgiveness. How do we share this with others? How does the church grow? You look at the churches that are really growing. They are loving the unlovable and reaching the unreachable. They're going into places where we normally wouldn't want to go. They're getting a hold of people because they see everyone as someone who needs God. Not the lower, not the upper class, not the middle class, everyone. And they see people in a different way. But oftentimes, as good Pharisees, as we are, we think, well, God, I want people to come, just not, and you can fill in the blank there. Well, I struggle with this person or this people group or this sin. But do we love people no matter what? But I would love for people to say, and this is an overall goal of mine, that what in the world is going on at Zenas, right? How in the world are they getting so many people that are like that? Let's just put it that way. Whether it's whatever category you want to put them in. It's because we choose to welcome and to love. And we know that God can change hearts, minds, lives. We should be an example of that, not us, right? We know that God can do it, and we want to share that same love. I want to be known as a church that loves, shows mercy, and shows the hope that is available. I want people to come and see something different than the norm, something better, something true, something everlasting, right? But how do we do this? What is our attitude towards the unlovable? Right? It's all too easy for Christians, people like you and me, to forget that we are sinners ourselves. That we're forgiven, and we pretend that we are some sort of elite religious club that few people on the outside could ever measure up to. And that's a woe to us statement, because we're just as much of a mess. And when we've been saved by grace, we're transformed, we are different now. And sometimes we say we want to reach people for Christ, but we're not prepared to accept them as they are, right? We want them to change whatever before they come into this place. Let me read a story about, this isn't on the screen, because I didn't go to bed in time, but in Luke chapter 18, it went so well with this. Let's see, Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. It's a story some of you know, but now that I'm dressed up as a Pharisee, it should make it even a little better. And he, this is Jesus, told them this parable to some people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous. And this is what we do. We trust in ourselves that we're righteous and viewed others with contempt. This is exactly what I'm talking about, that I do a great job doing, and I feel like a lot of us do. 2 men went up into the temple to pray. One is a Pharisee, and the other is a tax collector. A tax collector was like a curse word to call someone that. Like, we cannot stand those people. That's the group we want nothing to do with. And the Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself. God, I thank you that I am not like other people. Right? Swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector over here. Thank you, God, that I'm not like them. That was his prayer. That's pretty humble. Right? I fast twice a week, and I pay tithes of all that I get. He doesn't mention how he got his tithes from robbing other people, probably. But, and he was all about himself. And this is where we have to watch as a church that we don't get like, or at least we're not like that other person. But then, the tax collector over here, standing some distance away because he didn't really want to go into the presence of God, and he says, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. I'm a mess. He knew it. He came to the presence of God and says, listen, I'm a mess. Please be merciful to me. I tell you, the man went to his house justified rather than the other. So the one who said, I'm a sinner, I'm a mess, way better off shape than the other guy. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled. That's a tough line for us. But he who humbles himself will be exalted. Right? And I tell you this story, right, not to just condemn you, but to invite you to do the change that I'm talking about here. I heard a pastor say that last night. I'm like, man, that is so good. Because listen to this. Jesus, the guy we talk about every week, he went after those people. We talked about who gave up the most, right? I'm going to tell you who gave up the most. I'm going to read a story. The disciple that gave up the most to become a disciple was probably the tax collector. He had it made, he was rich, and he knew he was going to lose his job. He can never go back to being a tax collector when you follow Jesus, because that doesn't make sense. Right? Once you get out of that business, you're not going back. The fishermen, yeah, they could go back or whatever. The tax collector, no way could they have a job back. But listen to this. Listen how Jesus treats the tax collector. The rotten, the cuss word basically, the people they despise the most. This is what gives me hope, and this is what gives me hope for everybody in the community that I'm like, Jesus, really? And he says, really, watch what I can do. Luke chapter 5, 27 through 32. It says, later, as Jesus left the town, he saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at his tax collector's booth. So he's sitting there at the booth, and all of a sudden he hears, follow me and be my disciple, Jesus said to him. Still mind-boggling to me. So Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Everything, right? He's probably heard Jesus teaching before. He's probably been around. He's heard the gossip and the buzz around him, right? And it was enough to leave everything and follow him. Jesus picked a tax collector. I wouldn't have. Probably. I would have picked someone who was like me, who thought the same way, who did that. But Jesus thought the tax collector was going to be the one who was going to help spread the gospel across the world. And he was right. Later, Levi, this is later on, held a banquet in his hometown with Jesus as the guest of honor. Makes sense, right? Levi is now a disciple of Jesus. He followed him. But he's like, you know what? I want to have a party. Levi had fellow tax collectors and other guests also who ate with them. Let's stop here. So we expect people to change and to come. Jesus says, come, and then you're going to change. Matter of fact, we could probably argue that Levi hasn't quite changed yet. He hasn't changed his friend group. He hasn't changed in a huge way because what does he do? He throws a party. And he's like, Jesus, you should come be my guest of honor. Probably not the typical way of evangelism today. But Jesus says, sure, I'll come and I will be your guest of honor. And I'll show them the love that I have. Oh, but the Pharisees and the teachers of religious law complained bitterly to Jesus' disciples. I mean, they're throwing a fit right now. They're like, can you believe this? Why do you eat and drink with such scum or such sinners? I really like the New Living Translation because scum is even worse than sometimes a sinner to me, even though they're the same thing. It's apart from God. Why in the world do you eat with them? Right? And Jesus answered them, because they weren't even talking to Jesus, by the way. They were doing a great job of complaining behind Jesus' back like we do. Jesus answered them, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. So why are we looking for healthy people in our society and inviting them to church, right? Or we think, man, it'd be good if this person came or that person. We try to pick them out. Why are we not looking for the real sick and realizing they're the ones in need of Jesus, just like me? I'm sick, I have my issues, I need Jesus. I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know that they are sinners and need to repent. That's the people Jesus goes after. The ones that says, listen, I'm a mess, I need to repent. That's the one who says, those are the people that get it. He met sinners exactly where they were, and then he changed them. Right? Do we meet sinners right where they are and expect them to change, or do we point them to the only transformational change, which is Jesus? Matter of fact, every day there's people that are following, and we're like, well, they're not quite like me, that I'll go minister to someone else. Do we reach down and help them, or do we say, I don't have the time for you, and plus you don't fit into my group anyways? I pray we're a church that there is no group to fit into, because we're so different that the only thing in common is Jesus and the love of Jesus. But he noticed the unlovely, the unlovable, the too far gone. And just like every other person on this planet that we encounter each and every day, Levi was a person who needed to know Jesus. No doubt. And to reach out, that outreach, the neighbors in our community, it's not going to be easy. As a matter of fact, there will be some things that happen, some smells you smell, some words that are said that you probably aren't going to be happy with. But it's a step that Jesus can show them how much they are loved through you and your reaction to those messes. When they do something, when you're hurt, when they say something, when they actually do something that's not even moral, do you show them grace and love like you've been given, or is it another time to put your Pharisee outfit back on and judge them? Right? Again, it's the kidnapped royalty approach. Levi wasn't scared to lose his reputation as a tax collector, right? And to lose his job and to lose everything he worked towards, because he was a pretty rich man. He wasn't scared to lose it to follow Jesus. We need to remember that every sinner comes with a history, right? But every sinner that comes with a history also has a future. And we can be a love and grace-sharing person to share that future, that hope with them. So what does it look like for us to attract people that's not like us, right? Sometimes my heart really glows inside when people say, this is what I was thinking about this week, do you know what he or she has done? And they're in church today. Can you believe what they've done or said? And sometimes my heart glows because I'm like, yes, we're getting the people that are ready to see Jesus. Is who he really is. A great story that represents this, I read online, talked about a university and had a lot of students, and there was a very conservative church nearby. And one day, there's a kid named Bill, and he was going 3 or 4 years, and his 4th year, he's like, you know what, I'm going to check out what this university is all about. And he had some holes in his jeans, whatever. He was one of those guys who didn't even wear shoes around because it was summertime. He decided he was going to go to church that day. So Bill was like, let's check this out. So he gets into the church, and it was pretty full, all right? And he didn't see a seat or really a place to sit. Nobody really welcomed him or greeted him too well because he came in a little late because he was a college student. It makes sense. And so he's going down the row, and he doesn't know where to go because there's really no seats. So he's never been to church before. So he just comes, they're doing worship up here. He just sits down right on the floor in front of the stage. Sits there, cross-legged in his holy jeans and no shoes, and Bill is Bill. And he sits there. Well, sure, everybody's a little bit suspenseful at this point because you know what would happen if someone came in and just sat in the front, right? What in the world is this guy doing? So they were waiting, nobody knew what to do, and here comes the deacon. You can hear his cane coming. He's got his cane, and he's a very smart guy. He's been around for quite a few years, and he's a godly man. He's coming down the aisle, and everybody knows that he's going to address Bill. Right? So he comes up all the way to the front, and he sits down next to Bill and starts worshiping with him. To me, that story says it all. What does it look like to be different? Bill in the suit sat next to, or the deacon in the suit sat next to Bill with the holy jeans. Because it wasn't about how different they were, it's about what they were there for. And it may cost us our reputation. To be honest with you, that deacon probably heard it from a few others afterwards. Why didn't you tell him to do this? Why didn't you find him a seat? But guess what? When we decide that Jesus is important enough and other people's souls need Jesus just the way we do, right, things change. And I want to be that change. I was reading what a pastor wrote, and it says, Jesus came to heal the sick, and whether we like to admit it, that includes the unlovely people of this world, and it includes us. Jesus calls us to notice unlovely people and see their needs. He calls us to befriend unlovely people and be intentional about doing so. And he calls us to accept unlovely people as they are before they change. These 3 steps are what we need to bring people into a relationship with Jesus Christ, which is what we are all about in this church. And then it talks about, I wonder who's unlovely. So, he's not here today, but I told him I was going to share this story. Jason literally usually sits towards the back there. Rode my bus when I was younger, and he was the wild kid on the bus. I'm talking like, he taught me some things that I should never have been taught as a little kid. He was like 6 years older than me, and you know those influences that sit in the back seat, and they basically swing on the monkey bars that are not there. That was Jason, and I wish he was here because he could confirm this, but if you know him, he probably confirms it anyways. And I'll never forget the first Sunday he came to church. I'm looking at him, and it's probably been 15 years since I've seen him. I'm like, oh, there's that guy. There's the guy in the back of the bus. And so, being me, I'm like, well, that's pretty cool, right? He was crazy, and he, like I said, I can still remember some sayings that he taught me that weren't good. And so after service, I gently walk up to him, and I'm like, oh, it's good to see you. I was like, I know you. I was like, I think your name's Jason, isn't it? He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm just going to be real. I told him, I never expected to see you here. His comeback was, I never expected to see you preaching. Right? And if that isn't true, I don't know what is. And it's those kind of people, and today we have a good friendship, and he's not here today, but I look at those type people that I would say is either too good, too bad, too whatever to be here, and I write them off because I judge them and say they're not supposed to be here. And I promise you the people in my past sometimes will do the same with me. You James County people didn't know me good enough. Some of you did, or maybe you would have said something. But there's some things in my past. Really, I only knew Danny and Kathy, and I was really good friends with their son, Matt. Matt would have probably told you, or probably told his dad, really, he's like, I don't know yet if that's a great idea. Because he knew my past. But yet, they can see our change. And I pray that they see the change in us, not because we come to church, but Jesus changes us, right? And there's a big difference in that. So when we think there's no way, and we'll say, no way, God, God can say yes way, or Yahweh. It's his name. Let's grow his kingdom and not just our church attendance, because he wants to see people that are lost, completely lost. So I'm talking about the rich, the poor, and everybody in between. And the song that I really like says, God, break my heart for what breaks yours. God, break my heart for those who don't know you and your freedom and your love. And help me to not just judge them, but to see them in church and be thankful. Thankful that they're there, and that even if I'm going to judge them and say they're horrible, thankful that, God, you have the power to change them, just like you're changing me. But I pray that eventually that judgment goes away in my heart, that I don't look at people that are different and automatically judge them. But it's a learning process, and none of us are perfect. I'm going to share a quote to close here by Gilbert Chesterton. I skip around a lot. To love means loving the unlovable. To forgive means pardoning the unpardonable. Faith means believing the unbelievable. And hope means hoping when everything else seems hopeless. That's kind of the quote I want to live by, and for me, I need help with this, and I'm sure we do as a church, but I also want to be quick not to judge everybody else, whether I think that they're even people that are judgmental, because to be honest, I'm like, God, I don't know if we're ready for this step or that step. And God says, I don't think that's your spot to judge. because I know the power I have. And if you just are open to me, watch what happens. So maybe, I can't wait to get this weird thing off, but maybe you have your Pharisee outfit on and you do a good job of wearing it. And you got quite a few of them in your closet for different days of the week, like I do. Maybe we should take it home and give it to God, put it in the trash pile and say, God, man, I need a heart change. If I'm going to see people like you see them, I need a major heart change. I need to realize that I'm a sinner, I need you, and I'm sick, and I need a doctor. And Jesus is like, yes, that's the people I want. That's the people he's going to use to grow his kingdom. We can be a big church in numbers, but if we're not reaching the lost, not loving the unlovable or reaching the unreachable, then we're missing the mark. That's where we come as a church, say, God, we need help, we need your guidance, and we're a mess. Help us to be a hospital for sinners. The biggest ones. The ones that I don't want to have anything to do with. Help me to look at them in different ways. And just invite them and be surprised what God does. Because sometimes it's an invitation, sometimes it's a kind word, sometimes it's a smile. But God can change people's lives through us. He wants to use us. I pray he does that today. And if you just need that change, or if you just need to know Jesus in general, and you feel like more like the Pharisee and less like the sinner, that's what he wants us to do, run to him in a broken mess and say, God, I failed, I need this. Come as you are. Let's pray. God, I just thank you that I don't visibly wear a Pharisee outfit every day, but God, I need some help in this area for sure. Help me to show mercy as you show mercy, and love as you show love, and realize that people without you are a mess, and why should we expect anything different? But God, change our hearts, help change theirs, God, and help us to realize that true change comes through you and through our light and through the salt that we spread. God, bless this church in ways that are only glorifying to you. When the community or the world around would say, man, there's no way that person, yep, they're there. And not only are they there, they're growing, they're learning, they have a relationship with Jesus. I pray that's what we see today, the importance of God not only knowing you, but sharing you to the people that maybe we didn't want to share with before. Help us to see and help us to just let our heart break for what breaks yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.